in a barber shop, getting his hair cut, and he's really excited because he's getting ready to go on a trip. So he's telling his barber, I am going to go on a trip. I'm going to fly on Air Italia. I'm going to Rome. I'm going to stay in the Hilton in Rome. I'm going to see the Pope. Of course, the barber just scoffs at that whole idea. Said, oh man, Air Italia, that's a bad airline. And I've heard that the Hilton in Rome is a dump. And if you actually get to see the Pope, it'll be behind the backs of 10,000 people. So the guy leaves and he goes on this trip. And some time has passed, and he comes back from this trip. And he comes back into the barber's office, or the barber shop. And the barber asks him, well, how'd it go? Did you go? He said, yeah, I went. Well, I had a great time. The airline was really good, and the hotel was luxurious, and I got to meet the Pope. You met the Pope? What did he say? Well, when I bent down to kiss his ring, he asked me where I got the crummy haircut. Thank you for laughing. Good evening. While this presentation will be brief, we will see that contraception history is not brief. It is not a modern invention. Indeed, it's been available and used since the dawn of civilization. From the beginning of the covenant relationship of God the Father with his chosen people, right through the new covenant, purchased and sealed with the blood of his Son, God has revealed, ordained, and taught that contraception is not for us. Contra against conception, ring or gum. Archaeologists confirm medical papyri from 2700 BC and from 1850 BC in Egypt. And these medical papers describe various contraceptive methods used. There were many varied and, ironically, totally organic use of contraceptives in ancient times. And all historical evidence shows that along with the use of contraception, the ancient use of contraception was always in threes. Contraception, and when contraception failed, they used abortion. And when abortion failed, they practiced infanticide. But what does God the Father have to say in his revelation to his chosen people of these practices, organic or not? Let's turn to the Old Testament in Genesis chapter 38, verses 8 through 10. Then Judah said to Onan, go to your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother. But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So when he went to his brother's wife, he spilled the semen on the ground, lest he should give offspring to his brother. And what he did was displeasing to the sight of the Lord, and he slew him. In the commentary of this Ignatius Study Bible, written by Scott Hahn, we hear Onan commits a grave sin when he withdraws from sexual intercourse just before insemination. This was displeasing to the Lord, as was Onan's dishonorable intention to retain possession of his brother's property instead of providing him with a legal heir. If Onan's sin consisted simply with his disregard for a cultural custom, there would be no reason to spell out the lewd details of his bedroom behavior, especially given the delicacy with which the Bible normally describes sexual activity. Disregard for the Levirate marriage custom, however much it was frowned upon in ancient times, was never considered a capital crime. But since the Lord slew Onan, it is clear that his action was a serious transgression, on par with the sexual sins such as adultery, homosexual activity, and bestiality, all of which merit the death penalty in biblical law. In Catholic moral theology, the sin of onanism covers contraceptive intercourse, including but not restricted to interrupted intercourse, as well as masturbation. In approximately 500 BC, the ancient Greeks settled a colony in North Africa, in Cyrene, Libya, and discovered a wonderful plant, the silphium plant. It had many proven medical properties that were highly valued, not the least of which was its effectiveness as an oral contraceptive. For several hundred years, this plant was the cash crop of Cyrene, and they found that it would only grow in that area. Believe me, they tried to export it. It was highly valued throughout the civilized world and was traded throughout the Mediterranean. Its image was used on coins because it was so widely known and prized. It was harvested to extinction, and it is interesting to note that the last plant, which was worth its weight in gold, was given to the Emperor Nero sometime in his reign from 454 to 68 AD. Cyrano's, a Greek physician from Ephesus in 98 to 139 AD, describes 17 medically approved methods of contraception. Which brings us back to the church teaching. This time, in the era of the infant church, we first turn to the teaching on the 12 apostles called the Didache. Thus, in the Didache, one of the earliest non-New Testament documents that has survived, we find a stark choice given to those who would consider becoming Christians. The Didache was an invitational manual, as such, for converts, telling them what Christian holiness demanded, and consequently, what they must leave behind from the pagan culture that they were leaving. Its first words are, "There are two ways, one of life and one of death, but there is a great difference between the two ways." It was actually a manual of the first evangelization. The Didache listed 12 behaviors that had to be left behind by the pagans as they became Christians. You shall not kill. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not corrupt boys. You shall not commit fornication. You shall not steal. You shall not use magic. You shall not administer drugs, referring not only to magic potions, but especially to contraceptives and abortifacients. You shall not slaughter a child in abortion, nor slay a begotten one. You shall not desire the goods of others. This is the list, and this is the order. Please notice that it starts with administer drugs and goes on to not slaughter a child in abortion or slay a begotten one. Looking over this list, it becomes quite clear that many of the pagan practices of Rome, the very ones the first converts to Christianity were called to reject as leading the way to death, have somehow, 20 centuries later, become part of our contemporary culture again. What does the church say? Let's turn to the words of St. Paul in Galatians. Galatians 5:19 through 21. Now the works of the flesh are plain: immorality, impurity, licentiousness, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, anger, selfishness, dissension, party spirit, envy, drunkenness, carousing, and the like. I warn you, as I warned you before, that those who do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. And then from St. John in the book of Revelation. I'll read 2 of those. Chapter 21, verse 8. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, the polluted, as for murderers, fornicators, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their lot shall be in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. And 22, I'll start at 14 and go to 15. Blessed are those who wash their robes, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and that they may enter the city by the gates. Outside are the dogs and sorcerers and fornicators and murderers and idolaters, and everyone who loves and practices falsehood. When we read the terms sorcerers, sorcery, witchcraft, magic potions, these are translated to English from the root Greek word pharmak, pharmakias, which pharmacy comes from, referring to drugs. These drugs that are referred to, confirmed by archaeologists and sociologists, these drugs being condemned here are contraceptive drugs. And note that in 3 of his 4 references, you're condemned to hell. Of course, there's always reconciliation of that. So, from Serranos and other ancient physicians, evidence shows that pharmakia denotes the mixing of potions for secretive purposes. Let's turn now to the magisterium's response to the use of contraceptives. It's an extremely well-documented fact that in the time of the Apostolic Church, it was a common pagan practice throughout the Roman Empire to use drugs as contraceptives, and if it failed, secondly, to use drugs to induce abortion. These practices, both the Apostolic Church and the commentaries of the Fathers of the Church condemned as grievously sinful. These are not 20th century discoveries. These disciplinary decrees against contraception and abortion are among the very oldest and formal teachings of the infant church. I have just a few of the fathers that actually wrote about contraceptive practices and talked about them. St. Justin Martyr, St. Ambrose, St. Jerome, St. Chrysostom, and St. Augustine. St. Augustine was actually rather prolific on this. In the Council of Nicaea, which met primarily to block the heresy of Arianism, also talked about contraception. Pope Gregory IX, in his thank you, I told you before, the Decretals in the 13th century also addressed it. In 1884, Pope Leo XIII composed a prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel after a frightening vision of Satan and his evil minions trying to fulfill Satan's boast to destroy the Lord's church within 1 century. As the 20th century approached, the mother of all heresies reared its head: modernism or religious indifferentism. From the beginning of the 1900s, the din from the drums of disobedience started to replace the listening ears of the revelation of God with a new God, man. St. Augustine once quipped, "The wages of sin is sin." And as man turned away from God, World War I, the Great Worldwide Depression, and World War II, all delayed the coming revolution, the explosion of the anti-reaction to the goodness of God. The clamoring of the people demanding change brought the Church of England to its conference in Lambeth, England. The board is set. The pieces are now in motion. At last we come to it, the great battle of our age. Shortly after my dad's 3rd birthday, he's 87, the first Christian denomination approved the use of artificial birth control. Until that day, August 14, 1930, every Christian denomination on earth taught and held the ancient teachings of the church. Luther, Wesley, Calvin, just to name 3 of the reformers, all wrote condemning the use of contraception. At the August 14th Lambeth Conference of Bishops of the Anglican, the Episcopalian Church of England, a resolution was passed, which allowed the use of methods to limit the size of families where there is a clearly felt moral obligation to limit or avoid parenthood. I would like to read the resolution. It's not very long. It's interesting in its wording. We know where it went and where it came from. This is Resolution 15. 193 of the Anglican bishops voted for this. 97 voted against it passed. Or excuse me, 67 voted against it passed. Where there is a clearly felt moral obligation to limit or avoid parenthood, the method must be decided on Christian principles. The primary and obvious method is complete abstinence from intercourse, as far as may be necessary, and in a life of discipline and self-control, lived in the power of the Holy Spirit. Nevertheless, in those cases where there is such a clearly felt moral obligation to limit or avoid parenthood, and where there is a morally sound reason for avoiding complete abstinence, the conference agrees that other methods may be used, provided that this is done in the light of the same Christian principles. The conference records its strong condemnation of the use of any methods of conception control from the motives of selfishness, luxury, or mere convenience. Resolution 16 says the conference further records its abhorrence to the sinful practice of abortion. And Resolution 17 says, while the conference admits that economic conditions are a serious factor in the situation, it condemns the propaganda which treats conception control as a way of meeting those unsatisfactory social and economic conditions which ought to be changed by the influence of Christian public opinion. So the first domino fell, and within several years, every Protestant church allowed contraception. Within 4 months, Pope Pius XI issued an encyclical, Casti Connubii, Chastity in Marriage. I would like to read one piece of that. Remember, this was 1930. Stating, since, therefore, only openly departing from the uninterrupted Christian tradition, some recently have judged it possible solemnly to declare another doctrine regarding this question. The Catholic Church, to whom God has entrusted the defense of integrity and purity of morals, standing erect in the midst of the moral ruin which surrounds her, in order that she may preserve the chastity of the nuptial union from being defiled by this foul stain, raises her voice in token of her divine ambassadorship, and through our mouth proclaims anew any use whatsoever of matrimony exercised in such a way that the act is deliberately frustrated in its natural power to generate life is an offense against the law of God and of nature. And those who indulge in such are branded with the guilt of grave sin. The renewed challenge to the Church's teaching came with the approval of the pill in 1960. Pope Paul VI issued Humanae Vitae. How that came about is Paul added cardinal members to the Papal Commission for the Study of Problems of the Family, Population, and Birth Rates, first established by Pope St. John the 23rd. The majority opinion of this commission of cardinals, of Catholic cardinals, advised that the Church's teaching on contraception be changed in light of the new circumstances. These findings were leaked to the press prior to the issuance of Humanae Vitae. Many people mistakenly believed that the Pope could change the ancient teaching of the Church. He could not. Indeed, he would not. He reaffirmed the teachings from the beginning of Revelation all the way through modern times. The teaching cannot be changed and has been taught by the Church infallibly. It would be safe to say that all hell broke loose. The warnings of humana vitae, a rise in infidelity and moral decline, a lost respect for women, an abuse of power by governments, unlimited dominion. Man would believe he had unlimited dominion over his body. We have seen that not only has contraception been available and used since the dawn of civilization, God has revealed to us that contraception is not for us. In conclusion, I would like to read the conclusion of the United States Council of Catholic Bishops document called Mary Loves and the Gift of Life. This is from our bishops. By using contraception, couples may think that they are avoiding problems or easing tensions, that they are exerting control over their lives. But the gift of being able to help create another person, a new human being with his or her own life, involves profound relationships. It affects our relationship with God, who created us complete with this powerful gift. It involves whether spouses will truly love and accept each other as they are, including their gift of fertility. Finally, it involves the way spouses will spontaneously accept their child as a gift from God and the fruit of their mutual love. Like all important relationships with other people, it is not subject solely to our individual control. In the end, this gift is far richer and more rewarding than that. Living God's design for human sexuality in marriage can be difficult, but husbands and wives have not been left alone to live out this fundamental life challenge. If you have failed to do so in the past, do not be discouraged. God loves you and wants your ultimate happiness. Loving as Christ loves is a possibility open to us by the power of the Holy Spirit as a free gift of God. Through prayer and the sacraments, including reconciliation and the Holy Eucharist, God offers us the strength to live up to this challenge. Recall the words of Christ, repeated so often by Pope St. John Paul II. Be not afraid. The Church's teaching on marital sexuality is an invitation for men and women, an invitation to let God be God, to receive the gift of God's love and care, and to let this gift inform and transform us so that we may share that love with each other and with the world. You are not your own. You were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. Amen. Thank you.